Welcome to this month's C++ Serbia meetup. Today we are going to listen to Miloš, where he's going to try to explain to us why, in God's name, he tried to implement another command line argument parser. So yeah, without further ado, Miloš is going to give us his presentation.
Right. Okay, thank you. So yeah, it's the 2nd of August. No, it's August. It's October. Time flies. It's 2 weeks after the last meetup. The reason for that is, yeah, I just happened to be at this time in Serbia, and I agreed with Dusan to have this meetup because I wanted to see this place in person, and it's a nice view of Danube. And anyone who talked with me for like more than 10 minutes in last 3 years know I like a good view of a river. There could be less buildings, but okay. So yeah, well, thanks for coming. A bit more about me. Well, when I put this GIF, I assumed it's going to be all the same people that usually come, but I don't recognize most of you. So that's okay. That's nice to see. I started my career as a teaching assistant. That back when I was studying, it was a nice way to get some pocket money and do some work. And then I moved into development, as we all do. I've been working as a software developer for 7 years now. Almost. Well, it's gonna be 7 years, 1st of November, and I'm currently working in Prague, Pure Storage, and I mentioned that because at the end of the year I plan to come back to Serbia, and I will be needing a new job, preferably fully remote and part-time, because I hope to go back into teaching. The more I work as a developer, the more I realize I enjoyed this. Usually, because of this, I try to make my talks very simple and basic and easy to follow. So yeah, don't expect any like mind-blowing stuff here. And I tend to put very little code and huge font, but this time I couldn't. So like, feel free to move closer, in case you feel like you might not see everything. Although I don't think like code is going to be that important, and well, the details of the code at least. And like one more thing, this isn't me in the GIF. I don't want anyone getting confused. So just to make this clear. First things first, why even write a command line argument parser? So for me, it was, I will try not to walk in front of the screen, but I make no guarantees. So for me, it was sort of a midlife crisis type of thing. So I came to terms with the fact that my hairline is thinning and I need to wear a hat unless I want to get headaches from the sun. I bought a convertible, which is like the most staple midlife crisis type of thing. It's like either convertible or a bike, and I'm not feeling a bike. And the last thing is I started doubting my developer skills, as it usually happens. So like in 7 years, I've always been in big companies with like 3 million lines of existing legacy code. And when you do development, you don't do the real development, or as like you like to call it. It's usually you're fixing stuff, or you're like trying to fit something in there, and you don't really have the freedom of doing however you want it, because you're usually so constrained that there is one way of doing it. Like, well, at least one right way of doing it. You can probably write some nonsense always, but like one real way of doing it in the given code base. And so, I thought to myself, why not write a web server, right? Do it like at home, in my own time. It's like one of those projects that I think covers basically everything. I also planned on buying a Raspberry Pi and then having it run on a like separate machine. You know how ambitious you are when you're starting a new project, and then you're just cutting down as time goes on. So first things first, I need to set up things, and I thought about using Bazel. Well, Dusan gave a talk about like setting up the project, and yeah, he mentioned Bazel as a good option. I found some on Git, some project that you're supposed to clone and then use it, but then I had issues with some builds with like address sanitizer and some compilers, and I don't know, I was trying to fix it, and then I realized, okay, this is not what I want to do. Like the point was to write code, not to figure out why Bazel isn't working. So I moved to Jason Turner's this CMake template, because again, I'm just supposed to clone this repo and it's supposed to work, right? And then it doesn't, of course. You see, well, if you can see, it's red, okay. And again, I'm trying to fix it, to figure out why the builds aren't working, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized, okay, this is not what I wanted to do. I just want to write C++. Why is it so difficult? I mean, maybe later, but for now, just like C++. And then I remember I have Visual Studio on my PC. And you just go like new project and choose C++ and like it should work, right? So you create a project, and then like in the project settings, project properties, you can see here, well, if you can see, it's Urban Potato. The name comes from GitHub. It just suggested that name when I was creating a repo, and I was like, great, like 3 hours of work saved. You go to C++ language, and then you set, well, you can set, I don't know what, but I just set the standard to like the latest and greatest, whatever it is. Conformance mode, I'm not entirely sure. Like I think MSVC does some stuff a bit differently, and then when you set this flag, then it's going to be more in line with the standard or something like that. And I set this like modules stuff because in my heart I still hope like the modules are going to work fine one day, but I guess not yet. After that, there is the package manager and like the obvious, you get the main file with the hello world, and you press F5 and it works and it runs. It's great. Excellent. Now, package manager, the obvious choice is VC package manager, which comes with Visual Studio. And I've been shilling for this for like a year now, I think, because it's simple, like it's easy to use. And usually you need like 2 command line, like 2 command line calls, whatever, to set it up. But it's usually 2 different. Like every time I used it, it was a bit different. So like, I don't know, figure it out. This is how it worked for me. By the time you're watching this, it might not work. Like, good luck. You go into, again, from the Visual Studio, you go to command line and developer PowerShell, and you get this PowerShell. The important thing here is that it's going to set the paths, like the environment stuff that you need for the VC package manager to work. And you just need to create this file, vc package.json. And yes, it's going to put you in the folder of your solution of your project. You need this vc package.json file. I mean, you use code or Notepad++ or whatever you use, and it just needs to be a valid JSON, which means you can just put open and close curly braces, like it works. You go back into the PowerShell, and then you do this VC package, X update baseline, add initial baseline. It's gonna do something, and then you're gonna get this like built-in baseline thing. I think this is like the Git hash of the VC package Git repo at the point when when you call to this, because it needs to be like all of the packages at a certain like baseline need to be compatible with each other, because like if they depend, whatever. Go into the project properties, VC package, and then you just set this use VC package manifest to yes. Additional options, clean after build, not really required, but I saw it and I thought, yeah, why not? Might actually do something useful. And then host triplet is x64 Windows. After this, like you could just build your project, because all of the VC package changes take effect only when you do build. So you just build just to see like that nothing complains. After that, you just need to add these dependencies, and write your dependencies there, and it should work. Should is like the keyword here. And this is basically all you need. Again, you can at this point rebuild because that's when it's going to pull and build and link and like do all that stuff for the libraries that you have, because otherwise you'd get no like autocomplete and stuff like that. You can like technically you can do it, but like, don't make your life difficult for no reason. Go back to main, replace the cout with speed log, and you run it, and it works. And boom, you have a project. It's like 10 minutes tops. Well, it's 10 minutes if like the VC package thing works. So, yeah.
Why not CMake project instead of Visual Studio?
Yeah, okay. I will just repeat. So the question was why not CMake project? You mean CMake project within Visual Studio or? Yeah, I don't, because as far as I remember, you still need to write CMake yourself, and I just didn't want to do that. I just wanted so the point is, I just want to write C++. I don't want to bother with anything else. Yeah, so the question is like, is the VC package portable to Linux? Yes, it is, but like the setup is a bit different. You don't, you need to like explicitly tell the CMake where the VC package manager is, and then it's going to figure out like where you installed all that stuff. So it's going to, yeah, the question is like, does it automatically generate CMake file? Yeah, maybe you can put the microphone in the audience, and then it's gonna be easier instead of you running. Just put something in the middle. So the VC package manager itself is, I think, just a bunch of CMake scripts. And when you just tell the CMake where VC package is installed, and then from there, I think it's going to read the CMake scripts, and then it's going to figure out where all the things are installed and how to link and all that stuff. I actually, well, if I'm gonna like shield for myself, I actually gave a talk last year, I think, here about like how easy it is to use VC package manager. But I mean, this is why I use it. It turned out to be very simple and like cross-platform. So now that we have a project, it's time to see what is our dream. So the idea was, of course, to write like a server, but first things like I realized I need a command line argument parser, and I thought, well, I can like download one, like get from VC package, or I can write one. It seems like a nice, not too big and not too small type of project. So this is the dream. This is how I would like it to behave, or at least how the interface should be. So you create the parser, like usually from what I saw of the others, you can put here like the description of your program and stuff. I didn't care, so like you can just create it like this. And then you add an argument. You do it by like calling this add argument. You specify the type, short name, long name, and then a description of the argument. Then you parse, or well, you try to parse the arguments you got to your program. If it fails, I mean, it's up to you what you do, but like you should probably return. And if it succeeds, you just call this get value, put a name, and then you should get the value that was in this. So let's start with the implementation. Now, first things first. Okay, the namespace is, I think, only on this slide, but it's there. It's always there, always present. You just don't see it. Command line argument. So this is supposed to be a struct that is going to hold those command line arguments. And okay, this is, I think, the smallest font that is going to be. So like, this is the point where you can move closer if you have trouble seeing. It's templated on two things. First, would be the type, like the type of the value that's going to be stored here. And the other thing is going to be the converter. Like it's going to be a function or like a class or whatever. It's going to be whatever is going to take the value, the string from the command line that you got and convert it into the value of this type. Now, by default, it's a pointer to a function that takes a string and returns an optional of type t, but technically it can be anything. It's up to your imagination. So as far as the member variables go, you have a short name, long name, description, you have the converter, and you have an optional of t for the value itself. Now, the plan here is to just write something that works, and then like as needed, go back and make changes, optimizations, all the stuff. Like the first pass is just like write something that works. See how it usually goes at work. Like you write something that works, and then it's like, well, we have high priorities. We don't have time to go back and fix it. So we all have this experience. That's how I started this, hoping I will do better. Constructor, very simple, that just initializes all of the member variables. Maybe I could have done without the constructor because this could be an aggregate and then you work that way. But then I guess it depends on the type of this T. Like if it's not an aggregate, is it not? I don't know. I put the constructor there. It doesn't hurt anyone. And there is just a parse. Now the parse is just going to call a converter and then like check if this succeeded. Okay, you will, and then like it is going to return this result. Now you will notice that this is like pretty much useless work because you can just directly store into the value and return the value. But you know what? I just wrote it. It works. Okay, it works. Move on. Come back later. Okay. Next thing to do is obviously write tests, right? Now, the test here is, basic and simple because the parser doesn't really do anything. So you just create a parser, you create the command line argument, initialize it, and then you make sure that everything is initialized properly. And then you call the parse, you have the expected value, and then you make sure that what you got as a return is what you expected. And also that the member variable of the argument also has the expected value. Again, not really groundbreaking test here, but the thing is, if you write documentation, which I mean we don't, but like if you do, there is nothing really checking when you change something that documentation is in line with your changes. But in this case, like even though this is the most happy path test like you could possibly write, it actually documents exactly, well, the things you can construct it and you can call parse, and this is how it should work. If you change anything, the tests are not going to compile. Like no one's going to check documentation, but the tests are not going to compile. And yeah, you can use this as a like documentation. Although I'm not saying don't write documentation, but like if you don't like write code, if it makes you feel better. Second test is just going to work with something more complicated, which is a vector of int, but yeah, it just everything is basically the same. Yeah. I mean, I assume there are no questions. This is like basic stuff. And then if you go back to the first test, the expected value is like, okay, oh, no. Too many animations. So like this expected value is here, and like I have a 10 here, and then I have a 10 here, and that's like not a good way of doing things. So like should be one variable. And so the test can be like made a bit better by having like expected value here, and then capture it, return it, and then everything stays the same. Okay. Does not compile. Does not compile. Now, yeah, you're not supposed to read this. Like, the problem is that it cannot convert the lambda into the C, and it doesn't even say what the C is. So it worked in the first case because by default the converter is a pointer to function, but here it cannot convert. Because I did not go into details, but I assume that the conversion to function pointer for lambdas works only with lambdas that don't have captures. So we need to fix this. Well, I need to fix this. There is like an obvious way of doing this, which is just take the converter outside and then do a decal type converter to figure out its type, and it's going to work. But you know, I thought maybe it's possible to write a deduction guide for this. So what would the deduction guide look like? Okay, it's obviously like template type name C, and I'm calling the constructor that takes like 3 strings, short name, long name, description, and this converter. And from that, I can deduce that this is command line argument of C, and I mean, who knows what. So I've said that C can be anything, but like by default, it should be a pointer to function. Except that this isn't actually correct. Like this C cannot be anything, because if you look at the implementation, it obviously requires that it is callable with a string, and it should return something that can be assigned to a optional of type T. So I've said requires, I believe, which obviously means concepts, right? So the concept converter would be just simple. When I invoke this converter with the string, the result type should be something that is convertible to optional of type T. Now I believe like it's probably better to put here assignable instead of convertible, but it works, it's fine, move on. And then this is just replaced, instead of like converter, instead of like simple type name, it's a converter type T, which is this. And this doesn't work. It doesn't work because this T is going to bind to this C, and then it's going to try to figure out this. But the point is, just switch them, okay? Basically, when you pass the argument, if that's how you call it, when you pass the argument to the concept, they are like bound from the back. So this T is going to be this, and then it's going to try to figure out this C. Like it's simple, but it's difficult to explain. Like if you, I can try it in a different way, but like, believe me, it works. Okay, move on. And okay, parse is now simpler because like you just call the converter, set into value, and then return the value. Technically, this could again be one line. You could just say return value equals this, but that's like confusing, and didn't want to do that. Let's go back to the deduction guide though, because that's where we started, and we haven't really made any progress there. Like this, the C doesn't even, it still has no relation to T in reality. So technically, what can be done here is you can say like invoke result T. So like, what is the result type of the result when you invoke converter with a string? If this is an optional, then the optional has a value type as like using. I don't know what's like the proper name. It's like member using. I don't know how they call it. So you can say that, and then you say type name, and like that's going to figure out. So like whatever is the type within the optional that is returned by the converter, that is the type of the value that is going to be stored in the command line argument. I hope that's like clear. But then that requires that actually it's no longer convertible, it is the same. So like now a converter actually has to return an optional type T, not just something that can be converted. It loses some flexibility. It gains a deduction guide, which is like I don't know. Is it a good or a bad trade-off? I don't know. I would actually say it's bad, but I kind of committed to it. So let's move on. If we go back to the test, now you can actually create the command line argument with no template arguments. It's just going to figure out based on the converter. Was it worth it? Probably not, but it works. It's fine. Move on. Next thing is, yes, you would need to pass, like for every type, you would need to write a converter and then pass it. So it's probably good to have some default converters. For the integral types, well, this should actually be integral and floating point types. But like, just imagine there is like or floating point. It's going to return this lambda that calls number converter. Number converter will be implemented on the next slide. So just imagine it exists. For now, so the idea here is that for any type that is constructible from a string, except that I switch them here, and again, it should not be convertible, it should be constructible. But like, I did not test it that extensively, so it's probably fine. You just return like, again, it should be like an optional of type T with the value, with the string instead of just returning the string itself. Yeah, I think it's like fixed in one of the following slides, but the problem is like this was on in Visual Studio, and my laptop is Linux, so I couldn't fix the code. Or like, I will do it. Like Dusan will edit the presentation for YouTube, and it will be fine. For the booleans, yeah, booleans. Well, at this point, I didn't wanna like work too much with the booleans because technically it should be enough to just have an argument, and then like if it's there, it's true. If it's not, it's false. Like that's it. But instead, I just like decided if you pass the value that's 1 or true, capital or lower true, then it's true. Otherwise, it's false. Now you will also notice that here I use the trailing return type, unlike the other places, because I'm consistent like that when it comes to writing code. Otherwise, just like assert false and say like this type is not supported, you need a custom converter. So far so good, I would say. And then this number converter. So how do we implement a number converter? The obvious way, you copy the example from CPP ref from chars. It should be fine. And then you just like edit it to do what you actually want. So it's going to be a template because it should return like different types of integers or floating point numbers. And the return type is going to be like that. The result now is going to be of type T instead of an int. And all the cout stuff is replaced with speed log. If the conversion succeeds, return the result. If it doesn't, return a null output. And it's fine. It works. Now the command line argument is updated, and it's updated with just like one more constructor, which doesn't take a converter anymore and just calls the converter for function and uses that as a, well, uses whatever that returns as a converter. Okay. Yeah. Test, obviously, now if you create a command line argument with just an int without the converter, it's going to work. And it's time to move to the parser. Now, first thing is like there needs to be something that is going to hold all the arguments. And like after some thinking, you know, discussing with myself, you know, soul searching, I decided to go for the unordered map because like my way of thinking was you're most often going to do a lookup. Like you're going to add the arguments once, you're going to parse them once, but you are going to multiple times like look them up. So unordered map seems like a good choice here. And the key would be string. So let's say the key is a short name. Now, this decision kind of like hinders some other things, which I guess we will see down the line. But the point is, was this the best choice? Probably not, but it works. We move on. Fix it right. Okay, and it's going to be like unordered map, the key is string, and the value is going to be obviously a stud variant. Well, you can see the squiggles already of the command line argument of what? So this, like using stud variants means that I'm using static polymorphism. So I need to know all the types that this parser is going to work with at the point when I'm constructing it or when I'm instantiating the template, which means that parser cannot be just a simple struct. It actually needs to be a template, and it needs to be a variadic template. And now, when you're creating a parser, you need to tell it all the types it can work with. And now we will notice here that I'm passing only one argument to the command line argument struct, which means, which means one of two things. First thing is I can do some like complicated nonsense. So I cannot have two argument packs, or I'm not sure if how that would work. But the point is, like, I would need two packs, one for the arguments and the other for the parsers. Except that you don't always need a custom parser. You can use some as default. So I can maybe create some like pair of types and like make things like complicated and difficult for myself. But I decided I'm not gonna do that. Like I'm gonna be fine with just using the default stuff. I mean the default in the command line argument. So basically, yeah, okay, you can write a simple test, you can instantiate it, like it works, it's good. We go back to the command line argument, and now it doesn't have the short name anymore because the short name is the key, so no point in like having it two places at the same time. Converter is no longer like a second parameter because you can't really customize it because like, yeah, well, as I explained, it would make the instantiation of the parser just too complicated, and I didn't want to bother with it. So it's just going to be a stud function that takes an optional, takes a string and like returns an optional of type T. So yeah, all the stuff with the deduction guide and all that nonsense and my brain, the concept, basically a waste of time. Not really. If you enjoy, yeah, have fun. And yes, it does not compile. Why does it not compile? Because of the documentation. Because the test relied on 4 arguments and short name being there and all that stuff, but now it's no longer there. So yes, like go back, update the tests is the documentation. Now, first function is add argument. Well, you're supposed to add an argument, and like as already mentioned, it's going to be templated because I need to know like the type of the thing I will be storing here. It's going to return a bool, and since I'm like optimistic, if all goes well, it's going to return a true. As far as the arguments go, it's like expected, short, long description, and the converter. And then there is some like basic sanity checking, which I did not like focus on too much. So it's like the short name needs to start with a dash, and it needs to have at least one more character. The long name starts with 2 dashes, at least one more character. And yes, the short name can be just 2 dashes because technically it starts with a dash and it has one more character. And then the converter itself cannot be a null pointer. All of this goes well. You call this try and place. The short name is going to be the key, and the rest is going to be used for the value, which is going to be the command line argument itself. And the try and place is basically going to try, so it's going to check into the map if the value with this key already exists. It's going to return an iterator to that value, and this added is going to be false, like this is a Boolean. And if it doesn't exist, it's going to create it. It's still going to return the iterator to that value, but this added is going to be true. So basically, I check like if it was actually added. If it wasn't added, then return false. Otherwise, like everything is fine. Return true, and this is like all good and fine. The code compiles as long as you don't try to use it, because when you try to use it, it does not compile. A bunch of useless stuff. But okay, this would be like the useful thing. So what's the problem here? The problem is I'm trying to construct a variant with 3 arguments, except that all of the command line arguments in the variant actually take the same 3 arguments. So the compiler cannot figure out which one to construct, which version of the command line argument. So, I mean, there is probably like a better way of fixing this, but I just like said, yeah, like explicitly said, create a command line argument of this type, and it works. It's the important part. And the second overload is the one that doesn't take the converter. And then this is just going to basically call this overload with the default converter. So yeah, the second constructor, again, useless, not really necessary with this. After that, the obvious stuff, some more tests. So basic tests like add 3 arguments, it works. When you try to add an argument that exists, it fails because the in place doesn't work. When you try to add without the short name, fails. Without the long name, fails. Without the converter, fails. Well, actually, it fails only if the converter is explicitly null pointer. I think it's like fine so far. Second function, get value for. So this is like supposed to, actually retrieve the value from the parser, and it's going to go by the short name because, yeah, like the key in the map is the short name. Now at this point, you're probably realizing that the long name is not used and it's basically useless. So here's what it is. Maybe we fix it later. Probably not, but okay. As far as the return value goes, it's like auto, like the compiler will figure out what to return here, hopefully. So first, try to find an argument with this short name, and if it doesn't exist, just return a null pointer. And now, if it does exist, we are supposed to actually extract the. We are actually supposed to extract the optional that is within a command line argument that is within a variant. Fun. And since it's like variant and visit go together. So it's going to be a visit and on the variant, except like what is supposed to be the visitor here, the function, right? So it's like it's simple, like it's easy, right? No matter which command line argument is there, Like you are just going to take the value and return it, right? So you add this visitor and then you return that and it's fine, right? It compiles as long as you don't try to use it. Because when you try to use it, the compilation fails. The error here is pretty useless, and I don't know why. The first time it actually gave me a very useful error. And if you go into the CPP ref, you will see the actual problem here, which is this part. Or the results of invoke or invoke R have different types or value categories for different indices. The program is ill-formed. So what's the problem here? Because it just for the dramatic effect. So the issue here is that, well, I'm trying to return different values from this variant for the different types of command line arguments, and this is just not going to fly. So, okay, now to solve this is going to need to be a template. And okay, the return value is going to be still optional. Yes, I tend to write, well, except for this like iterator stuff, I prefer to write like full types, simply because it makes Visual Studio happy and then it gives me autocomplete suggestions, which is like the reason I use it. Otherwise, I could just use Notepad++. Okay, so now the basic stuff is still there, except that this if now has a second check, and that is like I need to make sure that this command line argument that I found for this name actually holds the correct type, the type that I expected. And for that, it's just holds the alternative and yeah, command line argument of T. If it doesn't, then like return null opt. Otherwise, well, now I just use a stud get, and like this get is, there is probably a better way of saying this, but this get is going to extract command line argument of type T from the variant. So I can like work with it directly, and now I just need to call that value, return that, and now it works. Now it's fine. And the last thing to do is to actually parse the arguments. So first things first, I'm not working like this is in the 90s. I'm not working with like pointers. It's like we're not savages. This line of code is from like CPP Weekly with Jason Turner. Basically, I skip the first argument. Well, I create a vector of strings, and like I skip the first, which is the name of the program, and then the end is going to be like when you move from the first to this argc. So it's basically just going to iterate through all of the arguments, create strings from the char pointers, and we can work like with modern people with it. Next thing, just like iterate. So I use this to use adjacent to. There is another one. So this one is going to give a tuple of like 2 elements. There is another one, I think like chunk, which gives a view, and I just didn't like it. For some reason, this one seemed better. And like immediately, I'm just going to do the, what's it called? Binding, structure binding, yes. Structure binding just to give like pretty names to these things, arg and val, and then do a check, like the arg is supposed to start with the dash. Now you see I have moved to the fancy not instead of exclamation mark, because I'm inconsistent like that. You know, I want you to be excited when you read the code, not to get bored and like know what to expect. I hope this is going to be edited out because I don't want that nonsense on YouTube. Okay, next thing is like actually try to find this argument. If you don't find it, like return false. and then we are back at the visitor. Now we want to actually parse the value. And this time, actually, visitor is going to work, except like what is going to be the actual visitor function. This time, it is simple, promise. Basically, you take the argument. This is the command line argument, the object of that class, and this is a string, the value. And you will notice that I here use references, constref, and like all over the place, I just use the regular strings with like no const or anything. Because, yeah, I don't know why. I just decided to do it here. Basically, so it doesn't matter what is the type of the command line argument. I'm going to call parse with this value, and then if whatever is returned has value, it means like that I have succeeded parsing. And if it doesn't have value, I have not. Basically, I'm always going to return a bool. The compiler is going to be happy. Except that like this takes 2 arguments, and I think like the function here is supposed to take only 1. Now this could have been done with the like lambda within lambda with captures and all that stuff, but I just decided to use bind back. So bind back is going to bind the value, which is this value, to visitor, to this argument, and then is going to return like a new function pointer or a lambda or whatever it returns. That takes only 1 argument. That argument is going to be this, and like this is going to be used for that, and it's going to work. So fine, yeah. Good. And now test, obviously. And the test, I believe it works. I'm pretty sure it works. And now, of course, more tests. So this is a test that's supposed to fail when the argument, so the argument here is wrong. Well, here it's wrong. Like it's supposed to be I and it's this, so it's not going to be found. It's going to fail. Here it's not the correct. Well, basically it's not going to be found, but also it doesn't start with a dash, so it's also going to fail because of that. And here the A is A, it cannot be parsed. Now, which one of this is actually going to fail? I'm just using an excuse to drink some more water. It's like, it's not really a trick question, it's more of me like being stupid. And this is where I actually use the debugger. You know, another great feature of using ID. It's all there, it's integrated. It's the last one. It's the last one because this lambda always returns 10. It doesn't even care about this here. So yes, right test. Good. So now I guess we can compare our dream with the reality. So the dream was to instantiate with like this. And here we actually need to put, well, we would need to put all the types that are required. So, okay, like 1 down. Add argument actually is as we dreamed, and parse is also. And now the get value, well, okay, optional is actually better than the simple int because maybe you did not pass a value, so like that should be fine. But again, here you need to put the type, and like you shouldn't. There are probably ways of like going about, like I had some ideas about how to do this, like use a builder, like create a parser, like a, I don't know, default, or like the best way is like in Serbian, like clot with no types. And then every time you do add argument, you actually create a new parser with the type, and then like you do add, and then in the end you get the actual parser that you're going to use, and you use move and like, you know, all that stuff. But maybe. Now, one thing I did want to change. I did change is I split this converter into multiple functions, and each one is constrained by requires. And here, like you see that it returns like a address or a pointer to the number converter of type T instead of like a lambda that calls it because it's unnecessary. Technically, like even this is unnecessary because the converter for could take a string and just do the conversion itself. But here you see that I actually return a string. This is still like convertible instead of constructible because basically if the type that's held in the command line argument is constructible from string, I can just return a string. I did no point in like doing anything else. Now the reason for this is the following. For the custom type, if I have multiple arguments of the custom type, I would need to pass the same custom converter every time I call add argument, and I want to like be able to. So basically, you should be able to write your overload for, let's say, IP address, because we are writing a server after all. And this should be used by default for every like command line argument that works with IP address. It's like a good idea, I hope, but it doesn't work. Does not compile. It does not compile because not implemented for the given type. So this function is like not found for, I would guess, multiple reasons. So it probably has to do with the instantiation of the template. Like at the point the parser is instantiated, it doesn't actually see this function or like something like that. I don't know. Did not go into too many details. But there is a way of solving this. Like it's more of a hack than a way of solving this, which is if you define this function before you include the command line arguments and you put it in the namespace. That was also a mistake. It works. So you know, life finds a way. So now the important. This is like the important milestone. Like this is the MVP. The minimum viable product. It has the basic functionality. It works barely, but it works okay. At this point, like we need to like take a look and so think about all of the mistakes. Like was unordered mark the best choice? Probably not. It also limited the use of the long name. I did have, so like this code I actually wrote again for this meetup. Like in the first version that I wrote like 2-3 months ago, I actually used expected for the value, and then I didn't log any errors. I would just return a string with an error. So you can decide what to do with an error, and that way actually the library doesn't have any dependencies. It's like standalone header file. And also there I had like an additional function that's like look up by long name if the short name fails and you know that stuff. Customization point, yes, probably like there should be a better one. The one that actually works without you know the definition before the include. I'm still not happy about the fact that you need to write like this type 3 times, like when you are instantiating the parser, when you are adding an argument, and when you are getting the value. There is probably some like complicated hacky way of like fixing this, maybe if I have time. Obviously, like optimizations like const and refs and forwards and moves. Like I don't know if you noticed, but basically everywhere I just pass strings because it just works. So like it's fine, and it also takes like less space on the slides. Additional stuff that could be worked on, like multi-threading, like make it thread safe. You know, that's always fun to do. Default values, like the ability to actually have default values, flags, you know, like not requiring value for bool, but just like flag that you can have there. Also, I saw like positional arguments, which I haven't really used, but they might be fun to implement. AI. I don't know. I mean, it's everywhere, so like, why not? And yes, actually use it in the server. Like that was the plan. But here I ran into like another problem, and this problem was too much for me. Like this was unsurmountable. And it's this. It was summer, and I had this swimming pool next to my apartment. Like the only time I had to actually work on this was the weekend, like a couple of hours on the weekend. I mean, I could technically do nothing else but like work on this, but I did not want to. And just look at it. Like look at the green and the blue, and it's like, look at the trees. The trees are actually in the swimming pool, right? So just imagine it's summer. It's like 30 degrees, and then you are like somewhere here under a tree, listening to music, podcast, or maybe just listening to the wind blow and the leaves rustling and the kids screaming and jumping into pool. Or like sitting in your apartment that doesn't have air conditioning and like typing. Not really appealing. So yeah, I decided, yeah, I don't care enough to work on that thing anymore. I want to spend time in a swimming pool. And so this was in August. Dusan actually contacted me about the barbecue that you had. I couldn't come because he contacted me like the day after I returned to Prague. Not really relevant here, but it was really nice, so just wanted to mention it. Yeah, okay, I'm censoring the word here because of the kids. So, and I say like, you know, I have a talk. I have an idea for a talk. I might prepare. And like I will be in Belgrade this week, so if you want to do it on Wednesday, like the 2nd would work. And he was like, oh yeah, like we can organize it. Yeah, we can organize it. Like, do you want to like, you know, put it in a calendar right now? And I said like, no, like give me a week to think about it. And he was like, fine. So there are two things I needed to think about. First one was, do I want to make this talk at all? Because of this part. This is like the actual important part. I assume that up until now you did not like find anything like super exciting or whatever. And the second thing is, will I finish GTA San Andreas, right? So the plan obviously is to go through all of the GTA games before GTA 6 comes out next year, or hopefully next year. And I have this like time slot on the working days between like 6:15, like 6:05, 6:10 to 7. Like it depends when I finish with the dishes. And yes, I have time slot for gaming. It's not weird, like you're weird. And I thought, you know, if I finish like this week GTA because I was close to the end, then I'm going to use that time slot for the presentation. If I don't, I will not, and like, too bad. I finished it, and yeah, I decided I'm not gonna start GTA 4. I'm gonna like work on this, and yeah, it was fine. We organized it, but every time I had the choice, right? It's Steam or Visual Studio, maybe even Epic Games, right? And it's a choice I don't really want to make. Like I should not have this like decision. So this is the actual part, the actual important part. So we are now an hour into this. If you don't want to listen to this, feel free to like stop me at any point. I will understand. I will not be insulted. I used to be one of those people that was like, yeah, I just want to listen about C++. Don't care about anything else. But this is like basically just like me with my midlife crisis realizations. I have this like nicer background for this part because yes, so this is Donji Milanovac. This is taken from the backyard of the apartment I was at, where I decided I actually want to move to this place. Like, look at the Danube, which is beautiful. Like, almost looks like a C, and I'm putting down the remote. I have 3 more slides after this. Well, technically 4, but like the 4th one is the finished one. So yeah, like whenever you want, I haven't timed this part. So whenever you don't want to listen to it anymore, just let me know, I will stop. So I made a mistake, like the biggest mistake all the way in the beginning. I don't know if anyone noticed. Yeah. No, you cannot really game on Linux. You can try. I've tried. No, it's not that. It's the fact that I was working on this in my own free time. Is the fact that I got to like 7 years of working as a developer without doing like any real development, or what we would call real development. And I used to say like, oh, it's because it's usually because like people that been in the company for like 10 years or stuff do the new stuff, and like we the new guys like do like the maintenance and all that stuff. And I think it's an okay excuse, right? Like you can sleep like at night telling yourself that, right? Except it's not true. Like I know people that are younger than me, and people that are that were in the company less than me, doing like new cool stuff. And yes, like this is mostly in pure storage. Like I do regret leaving the company. It's really good, like as far as I'm concerned. And like actually one of them is both younger and has been in the company less than me, and he got like to do some like really like a lot of development. It's insane. So what's the problem? What is the reason for this? Do we have any of this? Does anyone have like a similar experience? No, you just do like insanely good like development all the time, no legacy code and stuff, right?
A lot of like software development in corporate world, it's a lot of boilerplates and procedures and a lot of boring stuff. That's like normal.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I told myself. I actually had like a really bad experience in my first job. Dusan, we cut out this part. Don't wanna like, yeah, it was just maintenance. It was just bug fixing, and that's when I kind of like thought, oh, this is like how development works. Like when you start a job, it's actually not true. And like I'm saying, I saw that actually in pure storage. Like the guy was okay, so he was still limited by the build system that's used, but he actually started from scratch all of the code and wrote like insane amounts of code. However, he was working like 14 hours a day, and like he gained like 25 kilos in a year. So it's like unhealthy. So here's the thing. The thing I realized, the problem that I've actually faced, and okay, this is going to depend from the company to company. I never really cared. I don't know how you approach the interview process, but whenever I was in an interview, when I asked questions, I was just like, what's the standard, what's the compiler, what's like the test framework, and like all the, C++ related stuff. And I never really asked about the product, like the details about the product, about like what it is that the company actually does. Like, yes, they lie, obviously. It's what they do. It's never like as good as they make it out to be. But I believe like you need to find something that you actually care about. And this is basically the feedback I got at probably like last 3 or 4 yearly feedback stuff. Like I was in Ubisoft and then Pure Storage, and it was always like, yeah, technically good, like gets the things done, blah blah blah, but he doesn't show initiative and the corporate lingo. And I always considered it to be like, yeah, there's just you could work more for the same money, so why aren't you? And I mean, okay, that part is still true, right? The thing is, I like when we had stand-ups and not stand-ups, but like meetings and plannings and stuff. When we were deciding what to do, I was always like, I don't care, like decide and just give me Jiras and I will like do it. And that I realize is the wrong way of going about this thing, because C++ on itself like is not going to keep you happy and working at a company for a long time, right? Like you're going to write 5 coroutines before you're like, yeah, like I got it. Like I need a new feature now, and like it's not the C++. As fun as it is, it's not a thing that's going to keep you satisfied for a long time. Like you need to actually care. And I know this from like when I was preparing this. Actually, I got to work on something. Basically, we have a customer that moved from another provider to us, and obviously things don't work the same because, I mean, why would they? So I needed to implement something to have like the same behavior. And I talked with the project manager about this, what the problem is, what they need to do and stuff like that. And he says about them, oh, it's a sad story because they moved and they have this issue. But because he used those words like sad story, I somehow in my mind created a picture of these people that just want to do their job, but it's not working, and now they're like sad and angry and stuff like that. And I thought to myself, I just want to help these people, right? And I was working well. I finished this feature. I'm working on the same code base, same compiler, same like crappy legacy code. Everything is the same. The speed at which I work is the same because it doesn't really depend on my motivation. It depends on like, the whole infrastructure stuff. But there is one major difference, and the difference is it feels different. It's like feels better. Like I actually care about doing this, about finishing this. I care about this feature, how it's going to work, how it's like going to be used, and yeah, and that's when I realized that this is actually the approach I need to use. And I say this because I'm like since yesterday, I guess, looking for a new job. So in the future, I need to actually ask the companies, and this is, I don't think I ask this, or I don't think anyone else asked this, but I think the most important question is, what's the problem that the product is trying to solve? Like, it's not about like, what's the technology, what's blah, blah. No, like, what is the actual problem that this is trying to solve? That's at least for me. Like, you're all different probably. And actually, like on Monday, I talked with Alexander about this. And he actually has the same problem, except that he came to different conclusions and decided to go about it differently. So like, it's not, I have a solution and like, you should all do this. Figure it out for yourself. I'm saying the approach that probably most of us are using, which is, oh, I just want to do C++. I don't care like what's the product, what's the company, whatever, just like C++. Probably not like long-term maintainable. And I say this because for a long time I was like motivated by the money because, well, I want to build or buy a house. And once I made the money, I was like, okay, what am I doing now? And I had two choices. One choice is like, I can just do bare minimum at the job and like be a meteor developer, do bare minimum. I don't spend much money. I could like live easily with that money. The other option is to find a company that does something I care about and then like actually work on something. And it doesn't even need to be C++. Like at this point, I'm not even limiting myself just to C++. Like if a company comes with a good story and like I drink the corporate Kool-Aid and stuff and I like believe in it partly, I mean, yes, we all know like they are lying. I'm okay with it. Like even using Rust. Okay. Sorry, just
I can tell you from my experience is that like in big companies, when they develop a real serious problem, it's not about the language, it's more about the domain knowledge. Let's say you're developing some emotion recognition camera, and you need to know a lot about machine learning, you need to know a lot about image algorithms, image processing, and the people who actually do know a lot of things, they eventually become some kind of software architects who design the system and also decide, can pick the features they want to develop, and they can normally pick the things they're most interested in. So that's one thing, and I mean, it's a wrong approach to just like take any job and work anything without actually diving into the domain. Because people who don't dive into the domain, they only just stay afloat. They never, you never discover what's underneath. And actually, if you look at the software architects, these people who are, if you're like, example, you're been working on network routers and developing software for network routers, these people like pick a domain and stay in that for 10, for 15, for 20 years. So they don't change it like every 2 years just because a new opportunity which pays better appears.
Yeah, that's, I've already, like, I talked with one like random guy on a plane, and yeah, he also said this, like, yeah, basically what you're describing is like a software architect, and yeah.
So I can suggest for the next meetup or one of the next meetups, we can talk not about these topics, but about the career, how career develops in software engineering, what are the typical issues people come, including boredom, including uninteresting technologies, bad bosses, whatever. How to be, if you want to go software architect, if you want to go teaching, so we can have this in not as a presentation, but more as an open-end discussions.
Yep. Yeah, that's if people actually want to talk about it. I don't know. Like I said, usually I used to be one of those that's just like, oh, I want to listen about C++, and then I realized actually C++ is not enough to like.
C++ is the tool which is.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know like where other people are standing. So like I said,
everybody's somewhere there. It's a phase.
So, yeah. So everyone.
It's like I mean, you call it midlife crisis, but actually it's a mid-engineering crisis. It's a better word.
Yeah. However you call it, like I just realized the way I did it up until now is not working. It's like, okay, so like first job is, well, I guess none of your students, so yeah, but anyway, like if anyone is listening online, first job is like whatever, just find something, like get into the industry because that's like the most difficult part, or do the internship, you know, learn the corporate nonsense. Can you just take the mic?
So yeah, I followed the second way, and I just took whatever like full time that I could do with the university. And smarter guys, they took internships in Google, in Yandex. Like I come from Russia, and I would say the first approach. At first, I thought that I'm smarter because I'm like I got more money. I worked for some Web3 shit and so on. And they're like these big corpos, these low-paid internships. But in the end, like their CV seems like more reasonable. And in the end, if you cared for money and this stuff, it's like it's a mess. And this mess starts with this first temptation as a student to get at least some job which is well paid and that you can do along with your studies, just like my experience.
Yeah. So for me, actually, I couldn't get an internship because like most companies don't want an intern. So it was easier to get like a job than an internship. Like experience varies. But yeah, like for the first one is, you know, it's, you probably don't even know like what you're interested, which domain and stuff, if you, unless you're doing gaming, because like everyone from like the age of 5 already knows they want to do gaming. Well, they think they want to do gaming. But like, yeah, for the first job, get in there, get some experience, so you to actually have some leverage when you're trying to get a job that you actually want. And then like after a while, yes, you will like learn what you want, what you don't want, and then move on. I think there were, yeah, I wish I wrote some notes because I know that there were like 3 points I wanted to make here, and I've only made one. I don't know. Well, I think the second one was, you know, like the whole part when I was like talking about the code and like, it's fine, it works, like just move on. Yeah, this is not how I actually wrote the code. So like, it took me like maybe an hour and a half to write the code, like 2 maybe hours with debugging. I mean, the first version with the expected, where I actually went back and like did the it's not refactoring from optional to expected and all that stuff, right? And it took me 8 hours to convince myself to write the code because like I would stop and I would think like, I would try to figure out what is the best way of writing this, like the fear of making a mistake, even though I knew I was gonna make mistakes, like it is like the normal part of doing things. But no, like I still wasted a lot of time convincing myself to write the code because I want to figure out like the best way of writing it first time, even though it's for me. Like I always thought, like it's funny because I'm designing things and I'm thinking like thinking about the clients, like what would be the optimal way of using it, and I am the client, right? It's not going on Git. No one else is gonna use it. I am the client. So it's just supposed to be a throwaway project just for me to have fun and just write a bunch of code and make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And still there was this like constant fear of making mistakes. I wish I could find it. Like if someone finds this, I don't know if you know, there is a great talk from Odin Holmes from I don't know which conference, I don't know which year. He was talking about like the most important thing for a developer, and the most important thing is intuition, like the gut feeling. And no one can teach you that. Like that's the thing where you just have to write, make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and then like write again and be better and better. Like you cannot sit down on the first try and just write perfect code. No one does that. And like, yeah, we often complain about how the legacy code is crap, it's like terrible and all that stuff. And I say, yeah, it was written like 20 years ago, they didn't know any better and all that stuff. But there is another thing, and that's like, sure, I read a lot of books and I watched a lot of conference talks, but like if I were to start now from zero, what makes me think that I would actually write better, like design better architecture that like someone, some like junior straight out of college 20 years from now wouldn't say like, what's this crap? Like who wrote this nonsense?
So if you want like to set up a correct good architecture, it really depends on the domains. Some domains are really easy to understand. Like if you need to program television box, TV box, like it has a database of channels and frequencies, so it's you have like intuitive feeling. But if you have to write a compiler, like what are the parts that you need to make? So you cannot just start a project before knowing a lot of stuff about projects. Actually, I used to work for Google. They did this V8 Java engine, and we were like contractors for them. And the guys who were developing like the core engineers that were developing the compiler, they were all like they had PhD in compilers. So these were not like amateurs, and it wasn't anything like that. I know how to set up architecture for like a set-top box, but for a system that recognizes speech, I have no idea what is it. So there is this thing, we need to learn the domain before starting.
Yeah, but there.
Because, for example, in Russian Academy of Sciences, there is like a whole institute that is dedicated to C++ and C compilers. And these people, they just like studied like for 20 years, some professors from 1980s. So it's like a whole standalone point, just like AI. So I mean, like compilers, AI, they're like very different.
Compilers, if you want to write a compiler, there's a lot of domain knowledge in the academia. But if you want to write I don't know, like if you want to write something else, like I don't know, system for whatever is it for mobile phone, like a game or something like that. That kind of thing you cannot learn at academia, or a router.
Yeah, especially router. I mean, the best person, like for me, who knows like all the networking is like a guy without any formal education, but he's with the FreeBSD from 1980s since he was a kid from Poland. So yeah.
Yeah, but I think there are like some general like the solid principles that I think everyone knows about or has heard about. But like, yeah, sure, you know about them, maybe you like understand them somewhat, but like, would you actually be able to hold on to them like perfectly so that like later when someone needs to do like replace something, it's actually replaced? Like, have you done the dependency version properly so that later it can actually be replaced and like the solid stuff and all that nonsense, right? Like, would you actually be able to do any better, like if you started from zero, not talking about compilers, okay, any project, even if you knew the domain? So yeah, I guess that's the second thing, is like, yeah, just like make mistakes, try, fail, whatever, try again. The third one, I do not remember. If I remember, I will send it on Discord. And okay, so I have 3 more slides. First one is, how bad was it actually? I mean, my code, like, it feels terrible, right? So I decided to do the only thing that's true, and that is the benchmarks. So I compared it with the Boost program options, because that's like, I guess, the best known thing. So one thing, actually, the Boost program options is like more complicated to use, but I guess it has like much more features. And it also, when it returns, so when I looked at other command line argument libraries, they either use the dynamic polymorphism, or like Boost used it returns std any, which is basically anything, and then you need to cast it into the actual type. So yeah, like I was not happy about like writing the types everywhere, but I guess like even other people couldn't figure out like a better way of doing it without dynamic polymorphism. So maybe I'm not as bad as I thought. Listen, I have these benchmarks, right? So adding an option is like twice as fast, but again, I assume this is simply because for me, it's just add into an unordered map, and for them, like, who knows what they do. Parsing is, well, it's 10 times faster than for me, but again, like, who knows what they do and like how much processing they actually have. And getting the value is a bit faster for them. And the funny thing is, when I first time wrote this with the original version of my implementation and theirs, adding an option was faster for Boost. Parsing was, I think, about even, or maybe like faster for me, but getting the value was faster for me. Don't know what happened in the meantime. I guess like they changed something, or, well, okay, the benchmark code itself is like very basic. The point of this this benchmark is to just satisfy my ego and make me feel good about myself, and it does that, and I love it. So there are two like takeaway messages I want you to take home. The first one comes from the gym culture. I wish I knew who said it first, but like it's one of those things you learn like once a year. Like my shoulder and my lower back, no, I learn it once a year at least. And it's supposed to be difficult, not painful. And like you need to know the difference between difficult and painful. Now, the way the best way for me to explain it is this: it's like working out and going to the dentist, right? You go to work out. It's difficult. Hopefully not painful. If it's painful, like don't stop. But like it's difficult. You're tired. You're sweaty. Like things hurt. and then you go, rest, eat, have good night's sleep. Like sleep, very important thing in general. And afterwards, you're like, yeah, I want to do it again. Like I feel great, and I want to do it again. Like it was difficult, it was challenging, but like you enjoyed it, and you actually want to do it again. You go to the dentist, it's painful, you're scared, maybe you even cry, you know. And when you're done, you're like, I don't want to do this ever again. Like I'm gonna stop eating if I have to. I'm gonna brush my teeth 5 times a day. I just don't want to do this. Like it just hurt. It's like, yeah, sure, it's a bit like, oh, us developers having all like these easy fancy lives and like complaining about difficult and painful. It's like, yeah, like don't bother with that. If you don't feel like doing it anymore, just like figure out to either enjoy it or find something else. You don't have to like stick through the pain. I mean, life itself is like painful enough. Don't make it more than you need to. And the second one is from me, and it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's I mean, this is something that I've been telling myself all through this project. Like, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to like to fail. It's okay to start again. You know, I've decided, so like for the there is this like basically continuum between doing bare minimum at work and working like 14, 16 hours a day. And like somewhere in the middle is this sweet spot that I believe it would work for me, which is I work 8 hours at the job. Like most of the stuff is like corporate, like, you know, add this, fix this, like that. Like take maybe like 30, 45 to an hour a day just to like look at some conferences, read some blogs, and like satisfy your curiosity about the latest and greatest. And then the rest of the day do the corporate stuff, but find something that you actually enjoy, right? Like, well, enjoy, like something you care about. C++ may not be that great, like the code itself, but as long as it's like bearable, like, okay, there is a point where the whole system is just so terrible you cannot work with it. But like as long as it's workable and you have good colleagues, it's good enough if you care about the product itself or like the problem that you're solving. Maybe you're working on some internal tool and the problem you're solving is helping your colleagues, and like you go talk to them, like, what's the issue? They say it's this, and like, okay, I will fix it. Find something you're gonna care about and then do it. And yeah, I mean, I say this because maybe I'm wrong, but it's okay, you know. You have time to make mistakes, but like, okay, there are two important things. You need to be able to tell a mistake is a mistake, and like if you can't, you probably have friends that can, and you also need to have like a backup. I mean, this is more like a general life stuff, but it also applies here. And as long as you have those two things, like, it's okay. You have time to make mistakes and then go back and fix them. You don't have time to do nothing. And with that, it's all for me for now.
Where can we find presentation?
It's probably going to be on Discord. I actually need to. So, like for the code part, well, actually, even here, like you see how this stuff appears, right? It appears because I actually have the blocks of this with this color here, and then when I click, the block disappears, and you see the actual image. So basically, if I just export this to PDF, it would look like this. I need to like remove all the animation stuff, and then I will send it. I will either put it on Discord, or I will give it to Dusan, and then he will put it somewhere. No. Well, then I guess that's it.
As far as I can see, there are no questions from the online audience. So there are no more questions. Thank you for attending today's presentation by Miloš. And thank you all for coming. See you next time.